Thank you all. Well, thank you very much, Jim, and it feels like I'm among home folks. In fact, I am. I'll tell you about that later. But it's good to be with you all. I appreciate the opportunity to come with you to the main meeting. You all came to the Whitten building last year at my reveal, I think, to the USDA employees, and I appreciate some of you stopping by there for my first obvious remarks to our team at USDA. But it's really good to be here with you today. I appreciate the invitation to be with your annual conference and just to talk about a few ideas and how we can partner together with USDA and all of your member organizations across the country. You serve quite a bit of my constituency, our constituency, USDA, and I appreciate very much your being here. Coming to Washington is important, obviously, to come and talk to policymakers, talk to your members of Congress, talk to other agencies that affect your business, but it's also important for us to get out among you all as well, and I like to do that. I think we're clicking on about 35 states in the 11 months we've been in office here, and just this last week we were in Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky, and I'm sure had a good visit with many of your members during that period of time. What we learn is that not all the wisdom and intelligence is located here within the Beltway. So I really enjoy getting out, talking to real people about real issues and talking about real solutions to problems out there. But I appreciate very much you being here. As I indicated, we finished up last Friday our third RV Back to Our Roots tour, and it's exactly that. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to bring President Trump's message to our rural areas there, and he wanted me to remind them, told me personally on Tuesday night, you tell them that I got their back and I understand some anxiety, but we got it covered. So I know that there's a lot of news about trade in the news today about our disagreements with China over unfair trade practices, and I want to applaud President Trump for addressing this. It would have been easy for him to ignore this like others have done in the past, while we see China continue to use methods and strategies and, frankly, unfair and illegal trade practices against the United States. But I applaud the President. He understands that it's created some anxiety, certainly among our constituents in the ag community, but the President's message is simple. We cannot allow China to continue to break the rules and infringe on our intellectual property, and that we must protect our own interest in America. But at the same time, we also recognize and know that agriculture, and he knows that agriculture is a very vulnerable in trade disputes because it's often the tip of the spear in any kind of retaliatory action. And our farmers, frankly, brought that on themselves. They're so productive that we have a surplus of ag exports across the country. So anytime there are any trade disputes, they're always the one that are picked on. They also punch above their weight politically, as you members probably know, and know from your members. And so they know that they can try to get to the President and get to him through attacking his base in the rural America. And that's frankly exposes themselves as well. So our farmers are productive in their American products in markets all across the world, and that makes them extremely vulnerable and exposes them. But the President has very clearly, personally directed me last week, knowing that I was in Michigan and Ohio and Kentucky, strong agricultural states, to absolutely use all the authorities that the Secretary of Agriculture has at USDA to protect our farmers, their income, and their livelihoods. And that's frankly is exactly what we're going to do. Our friends in the media and others have asked me, well, what does that mean? What are you going to do? It's kind of funny, really. I don't think the President's one to lay all his cards on the table, and neither am I. Why should I tell you what I'm going to do if I do it? You'll know. But all I can say is right now, it wouldn't be very prudent to give away our playbook and let China know exactly what our plans are to mitigate what they've threatened. And good news is we're still in a stage of negotiation. And I think we all agree that President Trump has gotten China's attention over here. And hopefully that will lead to reasonable trade negotiations. The president has tried. We've tried since he came into office when he visited with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago to have a negotiation. The Chinese are very wise and strategic in what they do. As tough negotiators, they just can kind of continue to smile and say, yes, we understand, and nothing ever happens. And he is convinced, and he's persuading them that something will happen. But I do want to say this. Many of your members are in rural areas. Many of them are farmer producers as well. You serve them, and we're not going to allow the agricultural producers to bear the brunt of China's retaliation as we defend our own interests as a nation. That's the message I carry when I'm outside Washington, which is actually quite often. With this last RV tour, as I said, we clicked off 35 states I've visited since I took office not quite a year ago. And figuratively in the community we visit, I sense an enthusiasm, an optimism, and if you don't mind me being so cheesy in this analogy, an electricity in the air, as well as on the lines that you provide to those members in rural America. So we're happy to do that. And I've been certainly part of that during my lifetime. But what I see when I get out there is a practical wisdom that resides in your members and your boards across the country and the rural electric cooperatives across our nation. I know and I'm aware that you all have a deep, close, embedded, multi-generational connection with your communities. I know that because that's the connection I have with my local co-op. Many of you have known the bio. I grew up on a dairy, diversified row crop and dairy farm in rural Georgia, middle Georgia, Bonaire. My family and I all are still proud members of one of your members, Flint Energies. It's one of the 41 electric co-ops that serve electricity to almost half the people in the state of Georgia. And I can tell you firsthand how Flint invests in the community to improve the quality of life. I remember as a little leaguer, 10 and 12 years old in 1956 or so, Flint Field, named after the Flint EMC, was the only field available to young people in our area to play Little League baseball. As a child, I played on that field, and it was a gathering place for young boys and girls sponsored by the co-op, which learned the importance of community and networking. On our family dairy farm, a farmer co-op, your co-op lines brought power in those sweltering Georgia days, summer days, that cooled our milk tank. And I can remember fondly again taking that aluminum dipper and going in and getting that fresh taste of milk out of that tank. It hadn't gotten any better than that, I can tell you. As an elected official and a co-op member, I've proudly joined Flint in continuing to invest in youth, stimulating local economic development. They were always very aggressive in Georgia as we had a competitive environment, and our co-ops in those areas where we were looking at economic development prospects were always very helpful and very engaged in helping to bring new business and new businesses to Georgia, and I appreciated that. And they truly advanced the quality of life in our state, and particularly in our area at home. My uncle was a dairyman. Richard Talton was a dairyman, served on Flint's board of directors for many years. And now my neighbor, Neil Talton's also a dairyman, serving as the chairman of the board. So my connections to co-ops run deep as an appreciation of what you've done to serve rural America. I know that many of you also invest back in the community. Flint, probably as many of you, have a roundup program on your bill where it takes the next dollar highest that your patrons allow you to round up their bills and then reinvest it in many of the nonprofit and quality of life issues in your communities. That kind of commitment to your community is exactly why I've argued all over America that electric cooperatives should be an integral part of what I believe is the rural electrification of the 21st century. And you might believe and understand that I'm talking about the expansion of rural broadband and high-speed internet access. We're at the beginning, I think, of a seismic shift in technology. When you think just the beginning, you said, well, the internet's been around for how many years? Probably only 15 or so. When you think about that, how quickly it comes upon us, how quickly we become dependent on these technological advances there. And the partnership between rural electric cooperatives and the federal, state, and local communities, I believe, must be revolutionary in the change. I think it can be literally transformative around our country as we participate with you and you participate with local, state, and federal authorities to make sure this happens just like it happened beginning in 1936 with the REA Act. You've got the potential to do the very same thing in the 21st century. Just as you transformed rural America in the 1930s, there's a possibility of seeing even a bigger revolution in rural e-connectivity. 80 years ago, some of you may remember that, electricity in rural America was practically non-existent. Today, electric cooperatives maintain 2.5 million miles of power line. Think about that, enough to wrap around the globe 100 times. Rural America has electricity today, but fortunately, high-speed internet is lacking in many of those same homes. 80% of the 24 million American households that do not have reliable, affordable, high-speed internet are in rural areas. Think about that. You talk about a digital divide. We talk about the demographic shift from rural to urban. We think about the sociology in many of those things. I think you're looking at one of the causes right there. I don't believe that America would have ever reached the level of productivity that we have today across our nation without the abundant flow and connectivity of electricity available everywhere. That's pretty clear. In the same way, we cannot make America great again without high-speed e-connectivity available to every American. That is and will be the digital superhighway of today and of the future. In today's information-driven global economy, broadband is not just a luxury, it is essential. And if you've got children or grandchildren and it goes out, you see how essential it is. E-connectivity plays a critical role in establishing quality of life, access to health care, effective schools, and other vital services that foster long-term rural prosperity. I was just reading an article this morning about, in one of the major newspapers, national newspapers, about a family driving their kids to town 20 miles so that they can complete their homework at one of the fast food wireless connections there. That's happening more than you would think in many places. So we know that rural broadband gives an important role in agriculture. Let me just give you an example. This was one of those gee whiz things that I had heard about, but it was very fascinating seeing it firsthand. I was at the Farm Progress Show in Illinois last summer, and they demonstrated a tractor and implements there that utilized sub-inch technology to guide that tractor along where the ripper on that implement could rip the soil and deposit about half the fertilizer that was ordinarily used right in that sub-technology. Interesting the thing was, next spring after thawing and freezing and thawing and freezing and the soil curing, that same tractor hooked another implement, a planter there, and deposited that seed in that identical sub-inch technology, leading to productivity increases of 20 bushels per acre with about half the fertilizer inputs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's real productivity. But you know what it depended on? It depended on broadband connectivity, not just in the farmhouses, but in the fields across America. If we can go to the moon, we can do that as well. When I was watching that tractor, it was just amazing. I got down and saw that, and then to understand in the spring that seed would go directly there was just kind of that light come on moment for me. So it's all about really the 4 R's in productivity increase, whether it's the right kind of fertilizer at the right rate, in the right place at the right time. That's what we're all about with precision agriculture. So in addition to the sociological impacts of education, healthcare, e-commerce, innovation, creativity, and the electronic marketplace, precision agriculture has a place as well. But the fact is we cannot do that without ubiquitous broadband e-connectivity. The global population is growing rapidly. Your work with e-connectivity will directly impact our ability to meet the growing demand to feed that hungry world. But that's really not unusual for you because, frankly, my fondness and affection for you believe that's part of your DNA. And your board members across this country that understand the people and the citizens and the neighbors that they serve, part of a well-run organization with sound conservative business principles. We want you to look at this. Last year, you also stood up when hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria ripped through Texas, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, the Carolinas, and Puerto Rico. Your members responded. Our rural development staff worked closely with electric cooperatives to facilitate funding to repair infrastructure and restore power in the hurricane-affected areas. Cooperatives deployed resources. You all know you help one another from those areas not affected. We saw the trucks on the road. You were running to the disaster area, and you put your lives on the line. Your people put their lives on the line in some very dangerous situations. So I think it's really appropriate today that you all, NRECA, have set aside today as National Lineman Appreciation Day. Don't they get the job done? You couldn't do it without them. How many times have you seen, no matter the time of day or night, weekend, or whatever, the lights go out? So do they. So we owe a great gratitude to the men and women who answer that call in the dark of night, many times while the storms are still raging. And as citizens who become dependent on your product, we're grateful for that. So whether it's sending linemen across the nation to help rebuild infrastructure and restore power, or supporting the local food bank with charitable donations, USDA and rural electric cooperatives have had a long-standing, productive relationship that will continue. As another example of our strong partnership, I hope you understand that I've called on one of your own, Ken Johnson, to lead the Rural Utilities Service at USDA. Ken, I thought that would get an applause. Well, I've applauded him because when I heard about his management at the Como Electric Cooperative in Tipton, Missouri, and how his great broadband success story, he impressed me, and I've got great expectations for Ken as he leads our rural utility services. The cooperative Como saw a need for broadband in their area. They realized their members were underserved and set about building 3,000 miles of high-speed internet cable from scratch. And the part I like best, without federal funding. Before they even got started, they needed enough customers to commit to subscribing to the broadband service. So they did it using some old-fashioned technology, shoe leather. They went door to door selling broadband. Now they wholesale broadband to other cooperative members located close. So we are excited for having Ken on the team at USDA. Thank you as a group for helping to train him to serve the people of America. Ken is a proven professional, a successful executive, and innovative leader that we need at the helm of our U.S. right now to bring that real-world experience to our federal government. Some of you have probably heard me say, but these are the kind of people I'm depending on to make USDA the most effective, the most efficient, the most customer-focused agency in the federal government. Ken and his colleagues, I'm counting on to do that. We need those innovative leaders because we've got some new initiatives that I think will be of interest to you. Smart grid technologies use information and automation to dynamically manage the delivery, the security, and reliability of electric services. I'm sure that's probably been part of the conversation at your board members' meetings for months now. We're going to finance fiber-based smart grid if the infrastructure is used for smart grid purposes. Co-ops are now deploying fiber-based smart grid to connect electric infrastructure. We made loans totaling over $250 million in smart grid investments since fiscal year 2015. Going forward, thanks to Congress passing the omnibus bill Funds are available this upcoming year for smart grid to modernize and digitize your rural electric systems. I understand you're all different, you got different needs, but that's why we want to work with you individually to meet the needs that you have to serve your customers who are also our customers. We're also working on a new e-connectivity pilot program, and we're looking forward to rural electric cooperatives participating. The pilot initiative is a down payment of $600 million from President Trump's infrastructure initiative. This $600 million e-connectivity pilot program is an opportunity for innovation, and we want to see how many innovators in this room step up to say, we can do it. We're working on the rules for the program right now, so in setting the rules, we want to be sooner rather than later and speedy but not hasty. We're going to be speedy and working as quickly as possible to establish eligibility and build-out requirements and set up administrative procedures. But we don't want to be hasty in our decisions. You've heard the old saying, haste makes waste. We want to do it right but quickly. We'll not waste taxpayer funds on lab projects. I call them greenhouses that can't be commercialized and to become ubiquitous or ineffective or duplicative. We want new ideas of showing us how you all can get it done. Our team is working to set this up as we speak, so stay tuned. More details are coming soon. While USDA will be making grants and loans for e-connectivity initiatives, you know that this is not just a federal issue. As in the past, you can be successful, we can be successful as we collaborate, but the federal government wants to be junior partners in these efforts, combining with federal, state, local, tribal partnerships there that make sense. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit with my old friends in the Georgia legislature and their rural caucus. I was surprised at how many were there. Some of them I knew from metropolitan areas, but I think it's cool to be rural now, so y'all ought to rejoice in that. I urged them to pass a bill that increases access to rural broadband in Georgia with the consideration of using electric co-ops as the key partners. Time did run out on that bill, but there's still opportunities for Georgia and other states around the country to be innovative in partnership to bring e-connectivity to your communities, so don't give up. For example, the state of Tennessee, we know, changed their law to allow their co-ops to provide broadband services, and now 7 of their 22 member co-ops in the state are moving ahead in that direction. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know I trust you all as leaders in your community, as leaders in more than just power, leaders in the influence of rural prosperity that we're directly engaged in. And you have influence in your state and your communities. We need all shoulders to the wheel to plow for the next century of rural American prosperity. You've done it one time, let's do it again. And I want to thank you for your leadership in that area. When I came to USDA, I started sharing a simple little motto, and it seems to be catching on. It goes like this. Our USDA motto is do right and feed everyone. Just like Flint EMC, my local co-op, rural co-ops go about doing the right every day because you provide a steady, abundant flow of reliable power. Our farmers across the nation are able to feed everyone. I said at the outset, the Trump administration stands with our farmers, our electric co-ops, and the people of rural America today and every day. So thank you again for allowing me to join you today at your convention here in D.C. May God bless you, may God bless our rural co-ops, and may God bless America. Thank you all.